Hi, welcome to the coaching game. I'm Laurie Lawson,
And
and look who's here.
And I'm Terry Yoffe, and we are Coaches Creating Change. We are also the Blue Sisters.
Yes, we
today.
are. Yes, I was not planned. We just had a vibe.
We
had
just had a
We were going
vibe.
with it. Yes.
A mid-February vibe.
Yes, a freezing mid-February vibe, but we're going to survive. Terry's going to start us with it, and you'll see why we love the name Coaches Creating Change. Terry's going to start us with a great quote that she found.
That will kind of set the mood and pave the way for our conversation today, which will be about change. I love this quote from Eric Shinseki, who was a retired U.S. Army 4-star general. If you dislike change, you're going to dislike irrelevance even more. That's hard-hitting.
Big sigh. And and so what got us starting about that, and we talk about change because naturally we want to, help coaches create change, and we want to create our own change for ourselves and for our clients. But we were saying, wow, we talk politics, we talk religion, we talk personal, and it's like everything is unstable. And, nothing is going along in a straight path, which could be good, could be bad. But we was like, how do you do this? How do you coach? How do you coach someone when your life is wobbling and their life is wobbling? What are the foundation principles? What do you do? So we came up with a couple of ideas. Want to start?
Sure. So we're living in, and I'm sure you've heard VUCA, V-U-C-A world, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. I actually heard that expression, and this whole conversation has been going on for a number of years. I actually heard it at several conferences. The first time I heard it was David Peterson had talked about it at a Institute of Coaching conference maybe 5 years ago, if that long. And every conference I have gone to, it has been reiterated about disruption and change, and how do our clients really fit in to this whole notion of disruption and chaos and change, which is taking place globally, country, and ourselves, and in the business world. And that's the question. How do clients rise to the top
Adapt
when this is happening? And if they come to coaching, how do we as coaches help them get through this and with their being intact, if you will?
I think and when I started coaching, and Terry and I started coaching around about the same time, which was way back when, it was like, okay, here are some really great, cool tools and skills and everything. And what you're going to do, your client's going to start here, and they're going to reach here, and you're going to help them get there. And it was like, and we assume they started from a stable or even unstable, where you get that itchy feeling like something's not right. But they started there, and then they moved forward. Now the path is like, whoa, and it goes wherever it may go.
Right.
And in addition, we're dealing with changes that come in all the time also. So Terry wrote something, what was it, 5 years ago?
A long time
So
ago.
that's a
I
lot.
did a blog called Dancing on Shifting Sands, which
That's
at
so
that point
expressive,
had nothing
yeah.
to do with, what's happening today. And it's being able to sustain, to work, to grow, to learn, be flexible, adaptable in this time and environment. And I believe that these are some of the skills that somebody really needs. I think I was reading somewhere that some of the interview questions that people ask these days are, how do you work with a team and how do you fare up in chaos?
Yeah, yeah.
So if you're going to answer, I fall apart and I don't do well and I have a nervous breakdown.
You probably shouldn't be on an interview if you're going to give that
you're
answer.
You're not going to be getting that job for sure.
Yeah.
But it's demonstrating as a leader or as a manager or as someone who's got an intricate part in the community or in your business environment, that how do you do it?
Right.
And I think as coaches, it's helping these people see a vision for themselves of how they could be, and then kind of growing into that vision and stepping into that vision of how they could be in this environment.
And that may not be far from original, what y'all call it, original coaching, but now you have to throw in, and I love the metaphor of shifting sands, because everyone knows if you're walking on sand, your foot turns over, and then you try to go to the wet sand, and then the wave comes. I mean, it's just chaos.
Right, exactly.
And that was just such a perfect, idea that you had there. But so now it's like, okay, yeah, how do you clear the client up so that they can move forward? But also, I think coaches are now being challenged. It's like, you're going to move forward, absolutely. That's why you hired a coach. But there's going to be some breezes. There's going to be a hurricane. And so where do you fit in that change? How steadfast do you hold, or how flexible? And I'm sure it's an individual case for each person. But it's like, how do you prepare the client for this? And what are my favorite question is with anything, it's like, what are the opportunities? It's like, okay, there's chaos. It's like, what's going on around? What are the opportunities?
Right. That's a great question, as opposed to where can you fail? I mean, or
who can I blame?
Where's the negativity?
Who can I blame?
Right, exactly. It's staying with the positive, and what are the opportunities that someone can see for themselves, and also dig deep to find the courage to withstand it. Because Laurie and I were talking about, when there is this chaos and there is no steady ground, these are all metaphors, of course.
Right.
It's about vulnerability. And, Brené Brown talks volumes in books about
beautifully. It talks
exactly,
beautifully, yes.
about vulnerability and being willing to ride the wave and grow from it. So, what are some questions? One is, what are the opportunities for and really kind of tease that out for a client, so they get to really see whatever it is for them. And, one is, what is your vision for how you could be in this situation, and have them kind of lean into who they see and what would it take.
Helping them get a clearer vision, because that's all about what coaching's all about too. It's like, okay, what is your vision? And I don't know why we're going to the floor for this, but also it's like, okay, if you have the rug pulled out from under you, or the sand is shifting, then it's like, okay, when that happens, what is your challenge? What are the opportunities? What is the lesson? How do you want to respond? Not how do you want to react? Because react is like, immediately you're going to go, oh man, I thought I had this together. But then how do you want to respond? It's like, what's my response? And so as a coach, I think we were questioning ourselves. It's like, what do we give to the client, or what do we help the client get from their inner being that's going to get them through all this I don't want to say it's not like a Monopoly game. I guess it is, because it's a game of chance, but around the board to where they want to go, around the whatever kind of board that is. And we came up with the questions. We also came up with the vision. If you ask your clients, if you present the opportunity to vision, how do you do that with your clients? Because I know you deal with high-level executives, and I deal with regular folks.
Well, I don't think there's any difference when you pull back the rug.
No, there isn't really.
I think for coaches, a main ingredient is giving them the space, a safe space to really come in and navigate this question that they may be pondering, they might not know what to do, and they're feeling a little lost and even vulnerable.
Which is good.
Because a lot can come out of the chaos on many levels. So it's first trying to understand where they're coming from, what their challenges are in it.
Right.
And then looking at, okay, what's keeping this person from riding the wave, if you will.
It's so interesting that you said that, because yes, I always feel that it's the coach's main responsibility to provide a safe space where the client can just bounce around and go to every corner and stand in the middle and seem to feel what they or vision what they want to do. But also that's so interesting that you said that, because it's like, also, you may start the client, and anyone who's had me as a mentor coach knows I will tell you that when your client says, this is my problem, they're probably going to be giving you a symptom, and there's a deeper underlying problem.
Or story.
That you want to unearth if you can,
right.
Because you want to get to the source. It's you can do a Band-Aid, but if the bleeding continues, you want to do that. So not only do you want to have the client be vulnerable and flexible, you want to be vulnerable and flexible. It's like, oh, I thought I knew where I was going to take this, and I thought I knew what my next question. Whoops, I don't. Now the game has changed, and that has happened to me so many times.
So it's also being willing to not know.
Yes,
So while the coach, we don't know. It's CTI. One of the cornerstones is dancing with the client, right?
And letting them lead.
Letting them lead,
Right.
and dancing with them wherever they go, and being willing to challenge them in many, many ways. And the deeper you go, the more you will challenge as to what's really going on, because this particular issue is relevant to this client, whereas another client may have no problem.
Right.
So it's this client that is having the issue dealing with whatever the business landscape is, and trying to understand what's really going on for them. Are they afraid of failure? Are they afraid of, well, if my position changes now, I'm going to have a light on me and I'm going to have to perform differently? And what if I'm not up to it? They're going to find out that I'm a fraud, imposter syndrome,
Right.
or they're going to see that I'm weak in an area, or maybe I'll say the wrong thing. So it comes down to self-confidence in a lot of ways, and self-worth. Because when people are cozy and comfy, there's not a lot to prove. However, in today's world, if you don't like change, you will definitely become irrelevant. And that's just a hard fact. If you're not changing with what's going on in the company, in whichever way they are moving, and you're holding on to the lifeline for dear life, you will be irrelevant. You will not be part of the movement forward.
And if you doubt that, we always pick on poor old Sears and Toys R Us, but it's like these are companies that resisted change, because they had down the secret to success. Look how long they've both been established, and yet they're either changing or modifying, or they've gone out of business. So that's just a company thing. But I think there are common emotions and denominators with none of us. I'm trying to think if anybody does love change. I think even let's say a person who's in an abusive situation, yes, you pray for change. But when it comes, it's like, oh my God, now what? Your first reaction is going to be, now what do I do? I don't know the new rules. What's happening? Where do I fit in? What's my role? And you go through all that. So you have to accept that's going to be just a part of change. We all go through that. It's like, okay, now what? And then, but that's where the coach comes in handy, because it's like, okay, let's put this all in perspective. You know, what is your role now? You know, what are you feeling now? What do you want your next step to be? And so, but I think we're not saying, wow, just walk around going, yeah, change, embrace me here. We're not doing that. None of us like to move out of our comfort zone, but it's the job of the coach to let you know that outside there's a lot of cool stuff.
Right. That's very true. And let's throw it back onto the coach.
Yes, always.
And the coach has to change also in their thinking. If they're stuck in one modality that they know and that's it, and they're not going any further, that's limited. And, you know, change is, how do I better myself as a coach? If you've been coaching, I've been coaching for
long time.
16 years, 17 years, and you probably close to it.
Yeah.
So the
16.
way we coached X years ago
Different.
is what the market bore back then. Here we are, fast forward 17 years later. Well, the whole landscape, the whole climate, clients have changed. Their mindset has changed.
Yeah.
And if you're still trying to fit your limited mindset into what's going on out in the world, you will be irrelevant as well. So it's figuring out how to expand your mind. What are you doing? Are you up to date on what's going on? Are you reading and going to conferences and listening to what's happening and to your clients? And so you as well, it's kind of they're changing. Well, you also have to change. And how are you doing that? What does that look like for you? That you can meet them where they are and help them.
Interesting. Well, you know what? Let's give a shout out to ICF, which is the International Coaching Federation, because that is where a group of people, a group of coaches get together and they stay relevant. And ICF works very, very hard globally and on a local level to keep things relevant and to see what's happening out there in the world. And they require, if you're certified, which Terry and I both are, they require that you keep up with it too. You have to have, you have to renew your accreditation, and you do
every
that
3 years
by getting more information with, education and things like that.
Through education. Also, what I wanted to thank you for bringing up ICF was they went ahead and changed their
ethics,
core competencies,
and their core competencies,
and so they have also made changes to the needs of today. And we will, on one of the programs, go through the new core competencies.
Right.
And it's, I think, much more in depth and maybe much more understandable.
We went through the old ones last year, and now we're going to go through the new ones as soon as we understand them all. But they're good.
And even the code of ethics.
Yes, that's been
also
updated
changed.
Too. And one of the changes that they all, both the ethics and the core competencies, were to include global people. I mean, it's just getting a bigger and bigger organization. So it's no longer national. It's like international.
It's huge, humongous. So they have grown also by making changes, and
they're staying relevant also. It's like, why would you want to be a part of something that is going to give you the same thing they gave you 16 years ago? Yeah. So,
and I think a lot of organizations are trying to be relevant in today's world, and upgrading and updating based on the needs of what's happening today. I mean, as Laurie mentioned, Toys R Us or
Sears. I'm debating. They're around, but totally different now. There's
but also when you look at the influencers such as Amazon and what they've done to the whole retail community. Barney's, Henry Bendel, which is in New York, they've closed. And a lot of stores are having difficulty. Uber people don't need cars. They can just take an Uber somewhere.
The music industry, who knows what a CD is? It's
Right,
like nobody
live
uses them anymore.
streaming.
Yeah.
And Airbnb.
Right.
These are influencers that have changed the landscape of how we do business
Yeah.
and are edging out perhaps the car industry. I live in Manhattan, but
Can live without a car.
you don't need a car. Or people that are saying, gee, I don't need a car. I have Uber. I've got Lyft. I've got whatever else.
And what's happening is, unfortunately, Uber's a great example because it's edging out the taxi company who
Taxis
also
are
suffering now because Uber's a whole
There
new
you
game.
go.
So
Airbnb.
constant
People are
change.
so hotels may be losing out to Airbnb,
They
which would be
are.
attractive to people.
Yeah.
So when you look at the influencers and what they've done to meet today's change, or even started a need,
Yeah.
it's
true.
it's there.
And as on an individual level, of course, it affects your life. Do you take a cab? Do you take a? But on an individual, personal level, it's like, where can you look ahead? Can you look ahead, and where do you need to do some changing also? It's interesting that you said coaches have to go through that also, because when I started out, it was like, oh, I'm going to be a life coach, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And then 2008 came, and I had a background in human resources. And everybody was coming to me, oh my God, I need a resume, or oh my God, I think I'm losing my job, or I lost my job. And I went, you know what? I'm switching because there's a need out there, and I've got some knowledge that I can share.
Exactly.
And then later, when that died down, I'm not sure it has totally, but it did. The economy's much better. Then later, it was like I was doing something with geriatric care, and retirement became, and you just keep
that's a
moving
big
along.
one, right.
Yeah, and it's like you want to hold tight, but it's like, I got to go with the flow, and it's a little scary.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It's, all you have to do is look around, and, we don't live in bubbles, and look around at every global, national level and see that there is change, and the younger generation, the Gen Z and
I don't know where we go after them. Yeah.
Right. They're also producing change in what they're looking for in the business world.
Yeah.
Which is probably different than fast forward. The people in the Gen X and 40, 50-year-olds.
Definitely. The boomers are retiring. The boomers are so
Right.
whatever thoughts they had, it's not irrelevant, but it's a foundation on which the others can build. It's like
Right.
you move along, and it's and one way you can do that is like if you start realizing, oh, I need something, I need something, and nobody's out there and nobody has it. That might be your opportunity to go, well, if I need it, then other people need it. And today it's so much easier because you can get on Facebook or LinkedIn and go, do you all need this?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Facebook,
We didn't have that,
LinkedIn.
yeah. Total
You
different.
can find anything you want on somebody, assuming they're on a LinkedIn.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of privacy
No.
anymore. So anyway, getting back to the whole idea of change,
Right.
it's happening everywhere.
It is, and I think you do want to embrace it. You want to embrace it with caution. I think it's like you don't want to be blowing in the wind, oh, this way, and then I'm going this way. You want to, and I think the way you do that is you have, like Terry said earlier, you have a clear vision of who you are,
Right.
and what you want, and then it's like, okay, this is how I used to get this. This might be how I'm going to get it now. But you want to keep in mind, who am I? What do I really want? And it's that's the hard thing to do. But I think coaches have to keep that in mind too. What are we really there for? And it may be that originally we were there to say, okay, you're here, here's your goal, let's move forward. Now I think the role has expanded. It's like, how do you deal with
Yes.
all the craziness in between here and there?
Coaching has, I was just thinking, from the beginning where it was more question answer. You asked the question as a
Right.
coach, and the client answered it, and then you asked another question. Now, most clients want partners. They want strategic partners. They don't want a question man.
Right.
They
right.
want partners to help them figure it out. Some even, I don't know about giving answers, but coming up with solutions, right? So the whole landscape of coaching and how we interact with clients is so different. That's another change that is there. And if, as a coach, if you're still stuck in, well, I'm going to ask a question, they're going to give me an answer, and then I'm going to, that becomes irrelevant. Because
does.
that's not what they want any longer.
And more kudos for ICF, because that is a lot of the changes in the core competencies. It stresses partnership. You
that's
partner
what I
with
say.
the client, right, and to see how they want the session to go, to what they want, and you're constantly, and to see, are they pleased with how the session's going? You just keep partnering with the client.
Right.
And it's so good because you don't have to read their mind. It's like you ask them,
Right.
where do you want to go now?
Right,
Do you want
What's
to deal
on
with
your
this?
mind? What do you
yeah,
want?
exactly.
You know.
Rather than, you're right, of course, I never like that. Even
Yeah,
from the get-go,
I
it's
know,
like,
I
no.
know.
And then you tell people, you have all the answers. No,
Yeah,
we
don't
together we're
have
going to have the
answers
answers.
at all. They
Don't worry
think we
about
have
it.
the answers,
Yeah.
but we don't.
No, or you tell them you have all the answers.
Right,
Then
right.
why are they talking to you?
Right.
So
Well, they
it's a
just have, they
partnership.
might have it, but it's buried, and they
gotta
just have
dig
to
it out.
dig
Gotta
it out
dig
of
it
them
out,
as
yeah.
well. So this is Coaches Creating Change, and we want to talk about topics that are relevant and on everybody's minds
Yeah.
this year.
And I think the way we're going to, Terry has already reached out to ICF and said, what's relevant out there? So we have a couple of ideas
We
there.
do.
Plus a couple of ideas for speakers who could come and
Right,
talk
exactly.
with us, which is so fantastic.
Yeah.
And then just in our worlds, we're going to, we talk back and forth, but we're going to keep finding out. It's like, well, what are your clients asking for, and what what do I personally need? I know I have some things that I'm working on this year, and I'm sure you do too. And it's like, and that's how we're all going to stay relevant. And it's like, but I think what we really decided this program should be about, and when we started it 2 years ago, was helping people deal with all this chaos. I'll say chaos, but not in a bad way. To the change, helping people deal with changes, and
Exactly.
giving them what we see and getting from other people what they see.
So with that, we are almost out of time. Hard to believe.
I know, but we will be back.
We will. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next month.
Go out
Take
there
care.
and change. Take care.